She stumbled in at 2:17 a.m., heels in hand, eyeliner smudged like she'd tried wiping off the night, but only smeared it deeper. I didn't say a word at first. I just watched her toss her purse on the counter, reach for a half-empty bottle of wine, and pour it like she hadn't just erased our marriage with the stench of someone else's cologne, sandalwood and tobacco. Not mine. "Long night?" I finally asked, folding the same dish towel I'd already folded 3 times. She didn't even look at me. "Don't start. We were just talking." Her voice had that practiced flatness, the kind people use when they've already rehearsed the lie in their head, but still can't look you in the eye when they say it. "He's in town for 2 days," she continued, now scrolling through her phone like I wasn't even part of the furniture. "We grabbed drinks. That's all." My jaw ached from how hard I was clenching it. "You said lunch yesterday. Now it's 2 a.m. She sighed and plopped onto the couch like I was the one being unreasonable. "Jesus, if you're gonna walk out over one little night with my ex, you'll regret it forever." That line. That exact goddamn line. Not "what did I do?" Not "can we talk?" Not even a sorry choked through guilt. No. A threat. A dare wrapped in condescension. Delivered with the arrogance of someone who's convinced you won't leave. Not because you can't, but because she thinks she still owns your spine. I looked at her. I mean, really looked at her. The woman who used to wake up before me just to leave notes in my lunchbox, who once sobbed in my arms because her cat died, and she didn't know how to grieve. The same woman who now sat before me, tipsy and different and reeking of a man I never met, but already wanted to bury alive. So I walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled the same overnight bag I took fishing 3 summers ago. Didn't rush, didn't yell, just packed. Boxers, jeans, toothbrush. Left the framed wedding photo on the dresser because something about taking it felt petty, and I was way past petty. When I walked out, she didn't stop me. Didn't even look up. I left the ring on the kitchen counter. Quiet, cold, like a signed confession she never thought I'd write. And I swear to God, the second the door clicked shut behind me, I exhaled for the first time in months. Maybe you've been there, maybe you haven't. But if you're still reading, odds are you know exactly what that kind of silence feels like. The kind you don't get until the noise in your life stops lying to you. If any of this hits somewhere too familiar, stick around. We don't sugarcoat things here. We just tell the truth, raw and blistered. And if that resonates with you, maybe tap that subscribe. Helps the team bring more of these to the surface, because over 90% of people listen without ever subscribing. And yeah, we notice. We keep going anyway, but it helps. Anyway, back to her. She texted at 3:04 a.m. One line: "Grow up." I didn't reply. Instead, I drove north. No GPS, no calls. Just me and the sound of my tires chewing up the distance between her and clarity. By the time the sun rose, I'd already hit the county line. Somewhere between the gas station coffee and the shitty classic rock station, I realized I wasn't sad, not angry, just clean, like stepping out of a house that had been quietly filling with gas for years and finally striking the match on purpose. There's a peace in that, the kind that makes you dangerous. And that's when the real story started. The road to the cabin was lined with pines that leaned in like they were trying to overhear secrets. I kept the window cracked, letting the cold slap me awake. No music, just the hum of tires and the occasional rattle in the dash I never bothered fixing. She used to call it character. Now it just felt like proof I'd let too much slide. I reached the lake just before noon. My buddy Tom's place, one of those off-the-grid kinds of places with no cell service, no Wi-Fi, no neighbors for a mile unless you counted the raccoons. I hadn't been up here since the bachelor party years ago, when we still laughed like nothing could break. Tom didn't ask questions when I called him that morning, just left the key under the chipped ceramic frog and stocked the fridge with beer and eggs, the kind of loyalty you don't earn, you inherit. I left my iPhone on the kitchen counter and slid the prepaid flip phone into the drawer. Burner. $20 from a gas station 2 counties over. I hadn't memorized a phone number in years, but I wrote one down on the back of a receipt. Jacob S. Divorce lawyer. Old acquaintance from college. We'd reconnected at some bar crawl a while back, and I remembered 2 things about him. He hated small talk, and he didn't lose. "Jacob, it's me. I'm not looking for a war," I said once we met in person. "Just a clean cut, no splatter." He nodded, flipping open a leather notebook. You sure this is about peace and not performance? Does it matter? I asked. She'll perform either way. We started laying the groundwork that afternoon. No social media posts, no announcements, no bait. I wanted her confused, not confronted. Every piece needed to land like a quiet thud, not a slap, something deeper, something that echoes. Meanwhile, she still thought I was sulking. I could tell by the voicemail she left 2 days later, all sugar and static. Okay, look, can we just talk? I think you're blowing this out of proportion. I didn't do anything, not really. You're being dramatic. That was the first ping of satisfaction, real satisfaction, I'd felt in a long time. She still didn't get it. She thought I was pacing some hotel lobby, crying into minibar whiskey, waiting for her to come find me. She didn't understand that I wasn't running away from the marriage. I was letting it die in silence, like an old dog no longer barking. I spent the week writing, not poetry, just facts, a timeline, receipts, financial records, details you overlook when you're in love. But make or break you in divorce, the cabin had this old manual typewriter, and something about the clack of each key made everything feel more permanent. I typed out dates, conversations, trips she said were for work, dinners that went too long, all of it. Not to weaponize, but to remember. For me, there's a difference between forgetting and choosing silence. I wasn't forgetting. I was documenting without feeling, like an undertaker. By Friday, Jacob had everything he needed. I signed the papers with a borrowed pen, tucked into a manila envelope, and handed them over without ceremony. Serve her next week, Monday. Let her have her weekend. He smiled, just a flicker, and said, "That's cold." "No," I said, standing up. "It's quiet." I went fishing the next morning. Not because I needed fish, but because she hated when I came back smelling like lake water. Something about it being too rustic. I caught one, threw it back. 3 days in, and I didn't miss her voice, not her perfume, not even the shadow she cast over the living room from her favorite chair. I missed the idea of someone, but not her. And there's a very specific kind of clarity that comes from realizing you were more alone inside a marriage than you ever were outside of it. The silence didn't feel like a hole. It felt like a border. And I had finally crossed it. When Monday came, I turned the prepaid back on just to check. One text. What the hell is this? No greeting, no signature. Just her realizing she was no longer the narrator. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I had everything, and none of it was for her anymore. I didn't see the post when it first went up. Jacob sent it to me. No subject line. Just a screenshot. Her face filtered like a teenager's, staring at the camera with that practiced vulnerability, the "I'm just hurting right now" expression that people who've never apologized properly use like currency. The caption read, "Sometimes people leave when you need them most. Sometimes they use one moment, one mistake to erase years of love. I won't let bitterness define me. He left, I'm healing." It got over 100 likes in an hour. Her little tribe rallied, of course. The ones who never met me, who treat wine like therapy and therapy like a trend. They chimed in. "You're so strong." His loss. Men can't handle strong women. Strong? She once cried over a bad haircut. I didn't reply. I just watched the comments the way someone watches a slow-motion car crash they're not in anymore. Then came the second wave. Less supportive, more curious. "Didn't you say you were already on a break when he left? Wait, wasn't that your ex in your story last week? Didn't he pay for that trip to Napa?" The narrative was starting to split at the seams, and all I'd done was disappear. Then I got a DM from her college roommate, of all people. We'd never really talked, but she messaged me from an alt account, just one sentence. "She didn't expect you to actually leave." That line stuck with me. Because that's exactly it. She thought I'd do what I always did. Simmer down, wait it out, absorb the hit. She never prepared for me to fold the game and walk away with the chips. 2 days later, her ex's wife posted something on her close friend's story. A black background, white text, no context. Funny how cheaters always underestimate other cheaters. With a winking emoji. I don't follow her, never met her. But one of the mutuals, who still talks to both sides, sent it to me with a "LOL, you seen this?" Things got tense after that, not publicly, no explosions, just gaps. Silence in the comment section. Her post about healing was still up, but the tone had shifted. People weren't liking it anymore. They were lurking. You could feel it in the absence of hearts, the way you can feel cold in a room without opening the window. Then came the second post, more defensive, longer, clearly shaken. She tried to clarify again, this time with bullet points. We were having problems long before that night. He was emotionally closed off and made me feel unwanted. My ex was just someone to talk to during a hard time. There was no affair, just confusion and poor timing. I never wanted this to become public. The last one killed me. Public? I hadn't said a word, hadn't posted, hadn't told anyone beyond my lawyer and 2 close friends. The only person who made it public was the one trying to rewrite the story with a spotlight. Another DM came in, this time from one of her yoga friends. She said, "Just so you know, not everyone's buying it. Some of us saw her at brunch last week. He was there holding her hand." They were already playing house, and she still had the audacity to call me dramatic. But that's the thing about silence. It makes noise when you hold it long enough. People start noticing the gaps, and those gaps, they get filled with questions she didn't want anyone asking. Why did he leave so quietly? Why hasn't he said anything? What does he know that we don't? The comments slowed. The reactions froze. And her ex's wife, she didn't say another word online, but she changed her profile picture to a solo shot. No ring, no husband. By the end of the week, the narrative she tried to build had turned into a condemned house, and she was still inside trying to paint the walls. I didn't knock, I just watched the roof sag. I wasn't there when it happened, but I didn't need to be. I got the full play-by-play from someone who was seated 2 tables over, pretending not to eavesdrop while filming the tail end of the wreckage on silent. I watched it later that night, beer in hand, rewinding 3 times just to catch her expression the moment the second envelope hit the table. Not the first, the second. They were at that place she used to claim was too upscale for us. A patio brunch spot with $16 mimosas and chairs that look like art installations but make your spine regret every life decision. She was in a backless sundress, blue, her flattery color, and he was in the same smug leather jacket I remembered from an old Facebook photo I once tried not to overanalyze. You could tell by her posture she thought she was winning again, sitting there in public, basking in her own story like she was finally getting to rewrite it with a happier ending. Different man, same lipstick. Then the first envelope landed, standard white, nothing fancy. My lawyer insisted on discretion, but also impact. The server was smooth, polished even, like a concierge. "For Ms. Langston," he said. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough. Her smile faltered. She opened it and read the heading, Notice of Formal Separation and Initial Asset Declaration. Apparently, she froze with the page halfway out, eyes scanning like she was searching for a word that didn't exist. Her ex leaned over, chuckling, trying to make light of it. She said something like, "It's nothing, just paperwork. My husband's being dramatic again." That's when the second envelope slid across the table. Same type, same weight, different source. "For Mr. Cardenas," the server said, but he placed it directly in front of her. Her ex looked confused, opened it, read maybe the first 2 lines before sitting straight up. His mouth moved, something short. She grabbed the papers out of his hand and read them herself. Divorce, filed by his wife, citing infidelity. And there it was, her moment, right there between the burnt orange slices and the half-empty mimosa glass. Her world didn't collapse all at once. It cracked like old porcelain, jagged, silent at first. She said something, I couldn't make it out in the video, but it looked desperate, defensive, a hand gesture like she was trying to explain away something she hadn't prepared to defend. He got up, fast, knocked the edge of the table, spilled his drink, and walked out. Didn't even look back, just left her sitting there, 2 envelopes in hand, both lives severed in one go. The friend who filmed it texted me, "That was brutal. You didn't plan that, right?" I didn't. But God, it felt like poetry written in legalese. I never met his wife, still haven't. But I sent a bottle of good scotch to the return address listed on her filing. No note, just the bottle. She filed before me, technically, beat me by 12 hours. Like she was waiting too, just for someone else to pull the first trigger. By the time dessert was served, my wife, or soon-to-be ex, was just sitting there alone, trembling hands folded on the table. The server tried to bring the check. She waved it off. She never liked being seen without control. Now everyone had seen her lose it. And the best part, I still hadn't said a word. No press release, no Facebook status, no snide comments. Just silence, wrapped in action. The kind of silence that gets people to talk for you. Her sister texted me that night. "She's not well," she said. You should talk to her. She's spiraling. I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? Tell her brunch was great. Hope the eggs were warm. I just turned my phone off, walked out to the dock, and listened to the lake shift under the wind. I'd filed for closure. Her ex's wife filed for war. Turns out we were just two ghosts haunting the same liar, finally setting fire to the house she built out of excuses. It didn't take long. People talk, especially when the spectacle is served with rosé and a side of betrayal. Brunchgate, they called it, unofficially. 2 envelopes, 2 broken relationships, 1 perfectly timed unraveling. No one knew we hadn't planned it, that we hadn't even spoken. That 2 people hurt by the same lie had just decided separately to stop bleeding quietly. And suddenly, her phone stopped lighting up. The first to drift were the acquaintances, the background extras in her curated life. The coworker friends she always called the girls, but never actually knew her middle name. Their absence wasn't loud. It was subtle. Fewer likes, no tagged photos, a postponed girls' night that never got rescheduled. Then came the whispers, real ones. I didn't seek them out. They found me. One came from Lauren, a mutual friend who always had one eye on the drama but liked to pretend she didn't. She bumped into me outside the post office, feigned surprise, then said in a low voice, "She said the wrong thing to the wrong women." I raised an eyebrow. "That so?" She leaned in like the air itself might be listening. "You didn't hear it from me, but her ex's wife? Not just angry, she's lethal. Corporate attorney, mergers, takeovers, the kind who doesn't lose, she liquidates." I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because, of course, my wife thought she was toying with soft men and bored women. She didn't know she'd just kicked a hornet's nest in heels. Apparently, after brunch, her ex's wife had made a few calls, quiet ones, nothing messy, no threats, but people got the message, lines got drawn, sides got picked, and my wife, so used to bending the narrative, started realizing she was the only one left talking. She posted less after that, no more vague affirmations about healing or truth-telling. Her captions grew shorter, her smile tighter. In one selfie, someone commented, "Stay strong, girl." 10 minutes later, the comment was gone. Then something petty but telling. She launched a new Instagram account. Same username, just an underscore added. Started from scratch. Private, only a few followers. Like she was trying to scrub the old skin off. I didn't follow, but I watched. A few of her old besties, ones who used to tag her in every wine o'clock meme, were now posting with other women. Different brunch tables, different inside jokes. In one group shot, the caption read, "Only real ones left standing." She wasn't in it. Silence has a way of gaining weight. It expands, fills every room she walks into now, because I still hadn't said a word. I hadn't posted a damn thing. I didn't defend myself. I didn't clap back. I just exited. And in doing so, I became the void she couldn't explain. She tried reaching out again, through mutuals this time. Little feelers, "Hey, is he okay here?" "He must be hurting there." One friend even asked me if I wanted to meet for coffee, casually mentioning that she's been a wreck. I said no, I didn't know her performance, I didn't know anyone my pain. That was the part she never understood. She thought I'd fall apart publicly, that I'd beg, plead, rant, something she could point to and say, "See, he's unstable, this is why I left." But I didn't give her a scene, I gave her silence. And now it was screaming louder than any accusation ever could. Her father, who once called me steady as a sunrise, emailed me. Just a short line. "I don't know what happened, but I'm sorry. I didn't raise her for this." I didn't reply, not because I held a grudge, but because I didn't need to be part of her cleanup crew. She lit the match. I just walked away before the smoke got in my eyes. She wasn't alone, not completely, but the circle was smaller now, tighter, quieter, and every time someone left, she got louder, more performative, more defensive. That's how I knew the fear had started to set in, not because she lost me, but because she lost control. She filed for an extension under emotional distress. Apparently betrayal burns both ways now. Jacob called me the second he saw it hit the docket. "She's playing for time," he said, sipping something dark over the phone. "Says she's mentally unfit to proceed right now. Needs clarity, emotional space, therapeutic accommodations." Therapeutic accommodations, I repeated deadpan. You mean like the mud wrap she posted last weekend from that recovery spa upstate? He chuckled. Exactly like that. We didn't just object. We submitted. 43 screenshots. Public. All within the last month. Posts of her drinking wine with captions like "Healing is a journey." Tagged locations at rooftop lounges, overpriced brunches, and 3 different spas. One included a boomerang of her clinking glasses with the X, with a caption that read, "New beginnings feel familiar." She tried to take the post down after we filed, but the internet's like a Rottweiler. It doesn't let go once it's bitten. Too late. My lawyer's paralegal had already backed them up, time-stamped, watermarked, and ready for court. Still, she tried to counter, said her posts were curated moments, not reality, that social media didn't reflect her true inner state. That's when the real kicker hit. Her ex's wife, we'll call her Danny, filed an addendum in her own case. A simple one. Just an affidavit with attached messages, direct texts between her and my wife, dated 2 weeks before the brunch breakdown. I didn't even know they were talking. Turns out they weren't. Not until Danny messaged her directly, suspecting something was off. My wife played dumb at first, said, "Oh no, he's just a friend." But within 3 messages, she was trashing us both. He's boring, like emotionally beige. His wife is a frigid mannequin. No wonder he came crawling back to me. They both think they're too mature to get cheated on. I'm just helping them evolve. Helping them evolve. The judge didn't say much when we presented it, just adjusted his glasses, nodded slowly, and said, "Both motions for delay are denied." He didn't have to say more. That ruling was the sound of a door locking from the outside. Suddenly, she wasn't the emotionally distressed spouse. She was the manipulator. The strategist caught mid-blink, realizing she'd been outplayed by silence and a woman she underestimated. She tried to pivot, of course, claimed the texts were taken out of context, that she was being sarcastic, and that she'd been venting during a vulnerable moment. But sarcasm doesn't survive in court. Neither does arrogance. Jacob leaned over to me after the hearing, whispering, "She's spiraling in real time." I didn't reply. I just watched her from across the courtroom. Her face was pale. Her lips, once weaponized with half-truths and wine-soaked justifications, were pressed in a thin line. She wasn't crying. Not yet, but she wasn't talking anymore either. It hit her then, I think, that she wasn't in charge of the tempo anymore, that her little delay tactics, her manipulations, the vague wellness jargon and performative suffering were now evidence. Her circle couldn't help her. Her brunch crowd wasn't here. Just her, a folding chair, and consequences. When we walked out, she tried to approach me, quick steps, uncertain voice. "Wait, can we talk?" Jacob stepped between us like a damn ghost. "Anything you have to say, you can say through counsel." Her eyes darted back to me. I didn't flinch. She didn't cry then either. But that's the thing about collapse. It's not always explosive. Sometimes it's slow, like a house eaten from the inside out, still standing but hollow. And she had just realized the beams were gone. She wasn't being attacked. She was being seen. The city didn't feel the same when I came back. It was louder, sure, but it didn't swallow me like before. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking around carrying someone else's emotional leash, tugged this way or that, depending on her mood swings or hangover level. I wasn't returning to my old life. I was coming back as someone she wouldn't recognize, and more importantly, someone who didn't care if she did. I rented a place on the other side of the river. Small, quiet, ground floor. No granite countertops, no smart fridge that told you what to eat, just honest square footage and a neighbor who waved without knowing my name. It was perfect. I opened a new bank account under just my name, transferred what was legally mine, and didn't chase a penny more. She could keep the dining room set she pretended to love, but only bought for Instagram. She could keep the espresso machine she never cleaned. The wall art she claimed was curated. I didn't want any of it. It all smelled like artifice anyway. I reconnected with my brother, took him out for beers, and asked about his kids for the first time in years without checking the clock. Saw my mother twice in 1 week. No excuses, no cancellations, no whispering, so Melissa wouldn't feel ignored. I called an old friend from college, and we laughed like idiots over nothing for 2 straight hours. She said, "You sound lighter," and I didn't realize I'd been heavy for a decade. Then the email started. The first one was pure fire. Subject, "Are you serious?" She ranted for 5 paragraphs about betrayal, timing, how I had humiliated her by playing the victim, how I weaponized silence and turned everyone against her. She used words like ambushed and calculated, like I hadn't been the quiet one for months. Like she forgot who really brought destruction to the table, wearing perfume that didn't belong to our home. I didn't respond. A few days later, another one arrived. Softer tone. Subject: can we talk like adults? She opened with, I think we both made mistakes. I never meant for things to get so complicated. I was confused. I didn't expect you to shut down completely. Still, didn't reply. Then came the last one. Subject: plea? No grand statements, no manipulation, just a block of text, messy, unedited, rushed. I didn't mean any of it. I was scared. I didn't know how far gone we were until you left. I didn't think you'd really leave. I thought you'd come back like always. I thought I had time to fix it. Please, just talk to me. Just one call. But it was too late. Something had shifted that even she couldn't pretend away anymore. The silence wasn't a tactic. It wasn't passive aggression. It was truth. It was what happened when you finally stopped explaining yourself to someone who never listened. When the fog lifts and you see the exit for what it is. A gift, not a punishment. She kept emailing. They got shorter each time, less demanding, more desperate. One just said, I miss you. I didn't even open the last one. You see, that's what peace really is. It's not absence of noise. It's immunity to it. It's hearing the same cries that used to wreck you and realizing they don't move you anymore. Not because you're cold, but because you're healed. And healing doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it watches, then walks. The podcast episode dropped on a Wednesday. I found out through a coworker who messaged me mid-lunch, is this about you? With a link and a timestamp. I didn't click it right away. I just stared at the notification sitting there like a turd in a punch bowl, stinking through the screen. I already knew what it was. She'd always flirted with the idea of being heard, said people misunderstood her, said she had things to say and a voice that deserved a platform. Back when we were still together, she'd mentioned starting a podcast herself, call it Unfiltered with Melissa. Thank God the microphone never arrived. But now someone gave her one. A mid-tier relationship drama show hosted by a couple who used words like toxic and boundaries like seasoning, dumped on everything until it stopped tasting like truth. The hosts fawned over her, let her talk uninterrupted for nearly 45 minutes. I finally listened that night, alone, on the couch, lights off, whiskey glass sweating in my hand. I just didn't feel seen, she said, voice all warm, tremble, and calculated sincerity. My ex reaching out. It just reminded me that I was once loved with urgency, you know? I wasn't trying to destroy anything. I was just trying to feel something again. She went on. People think cheating is black and white. It's not. Sometimes you're drowning in a relationship and someone throws you a rope and later you realize it was a noose. But at the time, it felt like rescue. She teared up, allegedly. I couldn't see, obviously, but the hosts made sympathetic humming noises like she was revealing trauma and not just dodging accountability with poetic metaphors. She painted me as cold, emotionally distant, rigid, someone who preferred routine over passion, claimed we hadn't connected in years, that she tried to talk, to fix, to reach me, said I never yelled, never cried, just turned into stone, and that her ex was a mirror showing her what she'd lost. Then she said it. I didn't expect him to complicate things. I didn't plan for it to go there. But emotions aren't spreadsheets. You can't schedule betrayal. I had to pause the playback at that one, just sat there staring into the dark, trying to decide whether to laugh or pour another drink. But the best part wasn't the podcast, it was the comments. Because while she'd managed to fool 2 well-meaning hosts and probably a handful of You Go Girl sympathizers, most of the audience had already read between her lines, and some had read the actual court filings thanks to someone leaking the timestamps online. One of the top comments read, "Imagine going on a podcast to defend your affair and forgetting the internet has receipts." Another, "She's not sorry, she's sorry it wasn't private." But my favorite, just 8 words, buried in the middle of a thread. 2 legal envelopes, 1 brunch. That's not bad luck. That's karma. It spread. People started quoting it. Even the podcast's official account liked the comment before unliking it 2 hours later. Damage control. Too late. By Friday, another podcast had picked it up. Less sympathetic, more brutal. They played clips of her voice side by side with her social media posts, reading court date timelines aloud. It was like watching a house of cards fall in Dolby Surround. She posted a vague story that weekend. People will believe what makes them feel superior, but truth doesn't beg to be understood. No one replied. Not publicly. Her following dropped by a few hundred, then 1,000, then 5. Apparently people didn't want life advice from someone who could lie that smoothly in surround sound. Her attempt to reclaim the narrative became a highlight reel of how not to admit guilt. She'd tried to control the story, reframe herself as the bruised woman in the rainstorm reaching for warmth. But all anyone saw was a matchbook in her hand, and 2 houses still smoldering behind her. It came on a Monday, the kind that felt like a clean shirt. Sunlight through the window, coffee brewed just right, inbox manageable. I was walking back from the grocery store when the burner phone in the kitchen drawer buzzed for the first time in weeks. One new voicemail. I didn't check it right away. I knew it was her. No one else had that number. That was the beauty of cutting ties. When silence breaks, you can hear exactly who's making the noise. I poured myself a drink, sat on the back step of the new place, and pressed play. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. Stripped of the practiced tones, the performance, the edge she used to sharpen whenever she felt cornered. This wasn't a monologue. It was a leak. Something had broken, and now it was just dripping out. I just want to know if you ever really loved me. 12 words. No tears, no apology, no, I miss you. Just that one question, naked and raw, trying to stitch itself into meaning. I listened once, didn't rewind, didn't save it. Instead, I stood up, walked inside, and grabbed the envelope off the counter, the deed to the lake cabin. My name, Solo, no joint anything, paid in full, not flashy, not oversized, not surrounded by luxury, but it was mine, earned, quiet, permanent. I walked back outside and took a photo of myself holding it. No smile, no pose, just me standing on my porch, flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves, wind rustling the leaves behind me. You could see the reflection of the lake in the window glass. I sent it to her number, no caption, no message, just the image of a man who was no longer a supporting actor in her tragedy. I didn't check for a reply, didn't wonder what she thought when she saw it. Maybe she cried, maybe she scoffed. Maybe she deleted it before looking too long, because the part that hurt most wasn't the cabin or the deed or the piece in my face. It was the fact that she wasn't in the picture. She wasn't even a shadow in the frame. You can only ask, did you ever love me? When you already know the answer and need a different one. And I wasn't going to be her mercy. That photo wasn't revenge. It was punctuation, because closure doesn't come with grand speeches or dramatic exits. It doesn't come with tears on voicemail. It comes when you realize you don't owe them anything, not an explanation, not a second chance, not even a goodbye. She made a choice, and I made mine. Somewhere in that quiet space between us, the door closed, not with a slam, but with the gentle certainty of something no longer required. It was a year to the day, almost to the hour, when I got the message. A photo, blurry, zoomed in, taken behind a menu, from a friend of mine who stayed neutral through everything, even when neutrality looked a lot like disbelief. She never picked sides until she saw that. The picture was of a small cafe on Maple and 6th, a place my wife, ex-wife, once called too basic for her brunch standards. But there she was, seated at a corner table under a faux industrial pendant light, looking like she'd spent the night arguing with the ceiling fan. No ring, no friends. No overpriced mimosa or camera-ready avocado toast. Just a lukewarm cup of coffee, 3/4 full, and a phone in her hand, staring at it like it might blink first. The message she kept rereading, I knew it. I didn't have to guess. Don't worry, I won't regret this. That was the last thing I texted her. 1 year ago, on the day I walked out with my bag and left the ring beside the microwave. Simple, final, not a threat, not a goodbye, a truth. And apparently it aged like acid. My friend followed up with a second text. She's been sitting here for an hour, just scrolling up and down. No one's joined her. She's on her second coffee. Still hasn't touched it. I didn't respond. What would I say? Tell her I hope the silence is comfortable? Order her something soft? She's chewing on the past? No, I didn't need to say anything. The picture said it all. The world hadn't punished her. My Life didn't drag her by the hair into some dramatic reckoning. That's not how it works. No grand fall, no sirens or scandal or flaming downfall. Just this, a quiet Sunday morning, and no one showing up to sit across from her. She had tried everything to control the story: online confessions, emotional pleas, podcasts, weaponized vulnerability. She tried guilt, she tried charm, she tried to brand herself as misunderstood, but in the end, all she had was an empty chair, a cold cup, and a message from someone who used to orbit her world and now no longer existed in it. She didn't post that brunch, didn't check in, didn't upload a story with a filtered quote about growth or forgiveness or rising from ashes, because this wasn't a rise. This was a reckoning that arrived in whispers, in forgotten plans, in ghosted invitations, in people who used to call and now just don't. The brunch she'll never forget wasn't loud. It didn't involve clinking glasses or declarations of war. It was one woman, finally alone with the one person she'd been running from the entire time: herself. I didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. I just stared at that picture for a long time, not out of satisfaction, but because I'd always wondered if she'd ever feel it, really feel it, that moment when the performance ends and the spotlight doesn't come back on. And now I had my answer. She understood. Finally, the silence wasn't my punishment, it was my peace. And her consequence, the only one regretting it, was her.